Jay Hill is reportedly, and it should be official today, the new defensive coordinator at BYU on a deal that will pay Jay Hill $1 million a year at BYU to be the defensive coordinator. He replaces the downtrodden Elisa Tuiaki. I don't think there's any other way to spin this, Jake, other than to say that this is a huge step up for BYU. And I think this is exactly the shot in the arm that this program needed going into the Big 12.
Yeah, I the more I think about this move, the more I think like there's more professionalism in the program now. There's just a new, there's a new standard. There's a new sort of energy and breath of fresh air on the defense. And I think, while all those may sound cliche and while all those are like that corny sports verbiage that we all hear, breath of fresh air, new blood in the program, like it really does matter if you really think about it. Like you have turnover every single year in college football. Guys like Harris LaChance, guys like Max Tooley, like inevitably those names that in college football programs are not going to be there, right? And I think what's important is knowing that, okay, the defensive coordinator we hire is going to be there. Now, obviously, there's this conversation about how long Jay Hill is going to have this position and everything like that. But I think if you're a BYU fan right now, that's got to be sort of a back burner thing. Not to say we're going to forget about it or not talk about it, but I don't think it's what should be front and center. What should be front and center is the Big 12. That's what should be front and center. Hey, we're going into a new conference, a P5 conference, and we have a legitimate chance to get into the college football playoff. Just as simple as that. Can't say it any simpler than that. You have a yellow brick road to get to the college football playoff now. And the only question is going to be, what are you gonna do to make that happen? How far and how much are you willing to sacrifice to get that job done? Because losing defensive end recruits, losing any kind of recruit is never good for your program. And so to me, it's like, okay, great. You had your friend as defensive coordinator. We've moved on from that now. Now you get an actual cold-blooded killer of a defensive coordinator, and we're in a much better spot now. And that, to me, is what is so exciting about this. Not even that Jay Hill had all the success or that he's so accomplished, but that there's this professionalism. There's this standard now that I hope is really instituted into the culture.
Well, I think it has to be. I mean, culture has been such a problem over the last really calendar year at BYU. You had such a disastrous season this year. And I don't think that's overstating it. I think this past season for football at BYU was a disaster. Frankly, the bar at BYU football is much higher than what we saw this year. You expect a higher level of performance in all three phases than you got this year. There was no doubt that you were going to have to make changes. It was simply a matter of what changes were you willing to make. That's really the question that I think I had most about Kalani Sitake when it came to hiring a defensive coordinator. It is why there were so many questions about Sean Nua. And again, if you're just tuning in this morning, the details that we were able to gather on Sean Nua were that there was no announcement because administration at BYU has been hesitant to hire Sean Nua as a coordinator because he is not actively a member of the church and he has not had a temple recommend. And I think that's something that BYU, whether it's 1902 or 2022, BYU wants their highest profile athletic employees to have membership. They want them to be active members with the LDS church in good standing. And certainly you cannot say that with Sean Nua. Now, I think if he comes in as a defensive line coach, okay, I can see that happening. Is there awkwardness there? I don't think there would be. I think Sean Nua knows that the path has been beaten to being a head coach through BYU. I mean, you can absolutely, as an assistant, go on to do great things once you come to Provo. Facts. But the biggest question is, was it a mistake by BYU to not hire Sean Nua and to hire Jay Hill and then turn around and pay Jay Hill $1 million? Jay Hill's going to make $1 million a year by some reports to be the defensive coordinator at BYU. But I can't say that that's a mistake. I think paying Jay Hill that money was the requirement.
Well, and it's a statement. It's a statement of how committed you are to getting a very much ready and polished talent to be your defensive coordinator. And I think that's kind of what stands out to me. Like, hey, are you balling on a budget or are you willing to really invest? Much like the Yankees, right? Are you willing to pony up the cash and get what you want, or are you going to go halfway? And I think BYU went full send on this thing. I think that they knew that they needed a much better situation on defense. I think they understand that you cannot continue to lose talent. You cannot continue to get embarrassed by Oregon. You cannot continue to be unable to stop the Michael Mayers of the world in college football. And that's, to me, what this is about, because now, once Jay Hill is introduced and the ball gets rolling here, I'm telling you, pay attention to BYU's media department. I know we've talked about it a ton on this show, but I really think they give you insight into like what they're focused on in the big picture.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's always going to be positive. It's always going to be we're the best. But notice what they're focusing on. Are we making videos on Jay Hill? Are we making videos on defensive guys? Are we making videos on the Jaron Halls of the world? Like, what are we making videos on? That gives you insight into what they're trying to do.
Yep. College football talk, including BYU Cougar talk, is brought to you by Barbecue Pit Stop on the Monty Show. It is the holiday season. You're buying gifts for your dad, your brother, your friends. BBQPitstop.com. No matter where you catch this show, you can find them online at Barbecue Pit Stop. It's bbqpitstop.com. So easy to order. And by the way, even if you are within driving distance of their 5 great Utah locations from Logan and Layton down through Murray, Lehigh, and St. George, go in, see the awesome stores. I mean, the store in Logan is, I don't even know how you describe it. It is barbecue smoker heaven. And when you hear the words barbecue pit stop, that's synonymous with elite equipment. You're getting the best, whether it is a full line of Traeger smokers, whether it is a Big Green Egg, a Yoder, a Camp Chef, a pizza oven. They have the best equipment. But you might not know that they have the best talent as well, whether it is the people who staff their meat counters, whether it is the people that, sell you your equipment, recommend, hey, hey man, I'm making a brisket for Christmas dinner. What's the right rub for that? Hey, what's the right technique to make sure that I get a really nice, moist brisket, that I get some really good burn ends, that my ribs are fall off the bone? They have all that expertise as well, whether you chat with them on their website or whether you walk into one of their 5 stores in Logan, Layton, Murray, Lehigh, and St. George. Your only choice is Barbecue Pit Stop, who presents college football talk on the Monty Show. Obviously, I'm going to tell you the unvarnished truth about BYU. No matter what their move is. This Jay Hill thing is nothing short of sensational. I don't even know how to spin it beyond the fact that it is sensational. This is spectacular. This is, as a BYU fan, this is everything you want. As a Utah fan, you should be shaking in your boots this morning.
Do you think there's any danger in being too positive or too optimistic about it?
I don't. I really don't. I think that when you look at Jay Hill, or you look at exactly what he means to the program, and you look at his ability to recruit. I mean, because what is Jay Hill? Jay Hill's a recruiter. Jay Hill's a phenomenal defensive mind. There's no doubt about that. I mean, like, the things that have ailed this team on the defensive side of the football since Kalani Sitake got the job, those things all just went away right now. Because you're going to backfill talent. Again, I think their single biggest need at BYU on defense is probably 3 to 4 3-technique D linemen.
Yeah.
You got to have that. And Jake, I think that absolutely went away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that with Jay Hill, like, again, as I keep saying, I really do think that they're going to roll out a 3-4. I really think that. And the reason I think that is because BYU's defense has been slow, methodical, play within a shell defense, right? Where you typically have 2 high safeties, 4 down linemen, and then depending on the play and the scheme, your linebackers are doing what your linebackers are doing, right? But most of the time, we can all agree that this team was notorious for, rush 3, drop 8 type deal, right? That's what this was, and I don't think that that's what a 3-4 change is going to do. In my opinion, if you're going to change to a 3-4, if you're really going to take that step and be that aggressive with it, yeah, you're right. You do need to go and get good defensive line talent who can play the 3 technique, who can bust out double teams, who can really be chaos creators on the line of scrimmage. And even if you're not having your best game, you're still limiting the other team to, 70, 80 yards on the ground. You're not giving up the 150, 170 yards on the ground. even if you're having a bad game on the trenches, because you're playing the 3-4 and you've got tremendous speed at the linebacking position, you can cover the flat with your hybrid defensive end outside linebacker guy. Like, that's what we're talking about with this defense. And I'm so glad that it looks like that's the direction it's going to go, because it was very frustrating for me, at least, to jump on this show the whole season and talk about how East Carolina, Liberty, Oregon, Notre Dame threw it all over you. Like, it was frustrating because it didn't need to be that way. There were simple things that could have been changed. And that's why I say that the thing for me that's so exciting about Jay Hill is that it very much feels like now you have like a professional doing what he's supposed to be doing. When, again, with all due respect to Tuiaki, felt like you were in over your head. Now it's like, oh, we have a killer as a defensive coordinator, and he's going to go and stock that defense with the talent he knows he needs to do what he wants to do on the field. And that, to me, is very exciting.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you bring that up. I think it's, the other thing that comes to mind is, like I look at Pied Piper's comment, is there any chance Jay can convince the Fanos to stay at BYU? I probably not. Spencer and Logan, I think, are probably a package deal. Spencer was committed, a firm, done deal at BYU, and now he's flipped his commit to Utah. And I have to think that Logan, who's gone through so much since he signed at BYU, I have to think that Logan is going to wind up at Utah as well. And I was texting with Logan last night. We are trying to get him on the show to talk about this situation. And he has said he will do the show. It's just a matter of what day works for him. But I think that's a huge deal. And again, I just need to know why. I mean, that's the thing for me.
It's what matters. The why is always what matters in life.
This is why.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge question. I agree with you. The why is always what you need to know.
Is the why, so a couple of examples. I don't know any of this to be fact, just giving off the top of my head examples of why someone might decommit, and not only decommit, but flip the commitment to the Utes. So is the why the culture change? Is the why the struggles in the program this year? Is the why you didn't believe that BYU is the best place to get you to the league? Which, by the way, I'd 100% respect as a defensive player. I'd be going to Utah too, with all due respect to BYU and Jay Hill, apparently. But like, I look at this situation and I say, hey, kids are going to do what's best for them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But absolutely, you have to understand when you're at BYU as a coach, like Kalani, Jay Hill, all these guys who are working within the structure of BYU and what they have to offer, you got to understand that the tolerance for BS inside of your program is very little because of what it means to go to BYU, because of like the Sean Nua thing, not having a temple recommend, not being active in the church. Like, so when you have these extra steps, and again, not excuses, just reality. That's what we do on this show. We talk reality. We talk, truths. The truth is that there are things that you have to deal with at BYU that you have to conform to, that kids don't need to conform to at other schools. And so my point is that this past year, when Elisa Tuiaki and the defense are doing really bad things, and you've got turmoil, and you've got issues, and you've got drama, for a kid like this, why would I want to step into that? Even if you are making changes, why would I not just want to go to Utah, who is going to play and most likely win the Rose Bowl, in my opinion? Why would I not go to that situation? That's why I think kids are transferring.
Well, and I think when you look at, Spencer and Logan Fano, I think specifically, there are a lot of challenges in keeping brothers together. I just go back to the Nakuas. You look at Samson and Puka, they wanted to play football together. And one was at Oregon, one was at Utah, and they both wound up at BYU. This is not uncommon. I will again say, and maybe this is just my opinion and maybe I'm naive, I don't believe there's any panic button in any of these transfers. It sucks to lose Spencer and Logan Fano. There's no way to spin that. Yeah. That's a huge loss, right? Logan is a prolific edge rusher. That's what you need, right? Well, we're going to find out how prolific they are at Utah. And can you blame Logan for transferring? Well, one, it's his brother, so no, I can't blame him. But two, you want to be an NFL player, you go to Utah to play defense.
Yeah.
Maybe Jay Hill changes that belief, that perception, that reality, because it's really not even an opinion. If you're a guy that has aspirations of being an NFL player on the defensive side of the ball, are you going to BYU or are you going to Utah? I'm going to Utah.
Facts.
Right? I am. Outside of guys like Warner and Van Hoy, Brigham, like I am, I mean, the laundry list of guys, the Rose of the world, the Rileys of the world, like the Lotuleles of the world, the Bartons of the world. Like, I mean, the list is endless of guys that are in the NFL, and a lot of those guys have hardware too. Like there's no fault here with Logan, Fano, or Spencer.
Nah.
Like they're just
but I
making
think it's important,
decisions.
It's important for BYU to know why, though, and
yes.
obviously
they
know
do.
why.
They
but,
do.
But that's
absolutely.
That's why on the show we're so fascinated to know why and to get some insight on the situation, because I really do think, depending on what they say about it, right, whenever they do come on the show, it really sheds light on perspective, because that's the big thing here. Like you may believe one thing, I may believe another thing as to why the Fanos left. Like, great, but until you know their perspective, because they're that dude, it doesn't really matter. And that's what I'm saying. Like, hopefully Jay Hill can come in here and set a standard and set a bar. And I really hope that bar is a fast-moving, high-speed, dynamic 3-4 defense that does things that this BYU program has not seen in a really long time. And if that's the case, then that will allow you to start competing with the Utes. But it's unrealistic to sit here and be like, oh yeah, somebody who wants to go to the league as a DB or any type of defensive position, you're not going to BYU.
Yeah.
With all due respect, you're just not.
Right now, you're not. Hey, real quick, before we get to your comments, you guys are next. We've done a lot of talking this morning. We love your thoughts and feelings. Your comments are next. Breaking news out of Major League Baseball. Aaron Judge has agreed to a 9-year, $360 million deal to return to the New York Yankees. A little color coming out on that. The backstory is that Aaron Judge actually made this decision in San Diego. He flew to the whale's vagina.
Yes.
To choose between the Padres, Giants, and Yankees. And the Padres were supposedly, while late to the party, very much a player for Aaron Judge's services. And then he called the Yankees. And he said, hey, here's where I'm at. And the Yankees said, okay, how about we do 9 for $360? And he said, done.
Boom.
So he got his offers from the Giants, and there was something, and what this leads me to believe, and having worked around the Giants for several years, I'm shocked by this, but something was wrong with the offer in San Francisco. It was either years, dollars, what have you.
Well, I'm guessing it was dollars. That would be my guess, just because the Yankees is very clear. Because if you look at the course of events, the Yankees came in last year at $280 million. I don't remember the years, but that was the number, $280 million, which, again, is just a ridiculous offer just unto itself.
It's insulting.
But for Aaron Judge, like, dude knew that if he went out and had a historic season, that he was going to be able to essentially double that offer. And I commend him for that. And I think when you look at where the offer from the Yankees started and where they're at now, I think they began to understand, hey, this guy does believe in himself. This guy went out, and I think he hit 310, 62 home runs. Like, I think he was in the 9s for OPS, like just a historic season. And now he's getting paid. And so for the Yankees, it's very simple. Hey, are we going to renew Cashman? Yep, we're going to renew Cashman yesterday. Great. Judge calls Cashman. Hey, this is where I'm at with these two teams. Take it or leave it. And they took it. And that's as simple as it is in baseball. And by the way, I'd also say, hey, this is a fully guaranteed contract. So now you're locked in for 9 years. How many of those years are you going to be in the World Series? It's the only question that remains. Are you going to get, I would say if you got 3 years in the World Series, you're living well. 3 years in the World Series, 6 of those years in the postseason. 3 of those years maybe are crap.
Well, it'll be interesting because the only other deal that the San Francisco Giants have done is Mitch Haniger. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out and where they reallocate the Aaron Judge money. But a huge morning of news here on the Monty Show. Of course, all of our breaking news is presented by Quick Quack Car Wash. Make sure you get to Quick Quack Car Wash, get your wash pass, and while you're doing that, tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show. All right, enough of us, more of you. Let's get your thoughts on BYU. Certainly, if you want to mix in some Aaron Judge this morning, happy to hear about it. We're huge baseball fans on the show. Tanner Plummer says, I'm with Jake. There's a danger in being too positive. This isn't a guarantee that Hill's going to make the defense better. Stop.
Well, I think
wait.
that's not what I said.
You just said that Jay Hill's not going to make the defense better.
Yeah,
that's the BYU fandom that is plaguing this program.
Yeah, so I want to be clear on what I was saying with that, though. Like, I want to be really clear. So the reason I asked that question is because I do think in sports, generally speaking, big picture stuff, there is danger in being too positive. Oh, we signed LeBron. That means we're winning the NBA Finals.
Championship.
Right? Like, there's danger in that. But by no means am I saying that there's danger in saying Jay Hill made the defense better. There's no question this defense is going to be better. The only question that remains is, one, there's two questions. One, what kind of talent can he go and get in the portal and just in general recruiting?
That's right.
But then two, what can he do with that talent in terms of making the defense better?
Well, hell, he put guys in the NFL from Weber State.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
the guy's
come on.
prolific. The guy's talented. He's prolific. And that's what I'm saying. Like, Tanner, I'm not even hating on the comment, but I just want to be really clear. When I ask that question, I don't mean, hey, is there danger in saying Jay Hill is going to make this defense better? That's not even a doubt. All I was saying with that is that we shouldn't say, hey, Jay Hill's our DC, we're going to the college football playoff. You can't be saying stuff like that. But but he's definitely going to make the defense better.
Luis Capasso. Good morning, Luis. Where you been, dude? Hill will be there until they hire him as the head coach when they can. Sitake after they fail their first year in the Big 12. You're not firing Kalani after 1 year in the Big 12.
Dude. It's just not how it works.
The hill is so steep to climb. If they go 0-and, but they're not gonna. If they get bowl eligible, Kalani Sitake had a wonderful year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Greg Romano says now it's the time to get a new offensive coordinator, Paul Peterson. I think Aaron Roderick's got another year. A-Rod has done not spectacular, but a good job. You're not. I don't believe that you need to replace him.
He hasn't done a great enough job not to be talked about, but he also hasn't done a bad enough job to fire him right now, in my opinion. I mean, and the thing is, my only problem with that, like with the 1 year thing, is you're in that window where the team you put together here and the coaching staff has to be here the next 3 years, in my opinion, because you're going into the Big 12. So if you don't replace him now, he's going to be here another 3 years, in my opinion.
And that's the one thing that worries you about Jay Hill, because Jay Hill, it's mind-numbing, and we're going to ask to have him on, by the way, but it's mind-numbing that Jay Hill is not a P5 head coach now. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And maybe I don't know Jay Hill personally. We've had him on the show back at the mighty 1320 K-Fan.
The sports leader.
Because Kyle Gunther and Jay Hill have a great relationship. But I don't know why he's not a head coach. I don't. And I would rather be the defensive coordinator at BYU than the head coach at UNLV. Let's be honest about it, right?
100%.
But he also should be in the mix. He should be in for really good jobs. Provo Cougar fan says BYU can use the $1.4 million from the Notre Dame game and the $2.2 coming from the canceled Tennessee game to help pay for the coaches. But I don't think that's what it is. This Sean Nua thing is a big talking point.
Yeah.
If my sources are correct, and Sean Nua was not hired as a defensive coordinator because he's not an active member of the LDS Church, and thereby extension doesn't have a temple recommend. Uh-oh. That's a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah.
Because we've always heard, hey, to be a head coach of a major sport, football, basketball, you have to be LDS.
Right. And
you have to be a member.
Nobody had a problem with that. Nobody had a problem with that.
As it should be. Exactly right. As it should be.
Yeah.
There's no reason, in my opinion, and again, I'm not LDS, and I understand that culturally I am clearly a step behind. There's no reason that your coordinators need to be LDS, in my opinion. That doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge supporter, as you know, of the honor code. I'm a huge supporter of the academics. I'm a huge supporter of the culture. I'm a huge supporter of the ecosystem on the Provo campus, 100%. I don't understand why your coordinators have to be LDS. Because that's the message you're sending to me.
Oh, 100%,
because you hired a guy in Jay Hill who's LDS. You have a guy in A-Rod who's LDS. Obviously, Kalani's LDS. You're sending the message that to be a coordinator in BYU football, you have to be a member of the church in good standing and have a temple recommend.
And it's the old saying, right? From Bronco. Football's fifth. It's not first.
Well,
and I think that,
ding.
And you know, all jokes aside, I'm not even being tongue in cheek. Like, I think it's the truth. I think that BYU is committed, whether you agree or disagree, rightly, wrongly, whatever. They're committed to the faith, obviously. And I think that that's where the buddy who wants to say the church gets in the way. Okay, play that card today. If you want to play that card, fine. But I just think that the church is not the reason they are not winning football games. And I don't want to hear that today. I don't want to hear, oh, well, the church got in the way, right? The card carrying rule got in the way. The honor code got in the way. Like these different things got in the way, because that's just not true. What got in the way is your coaching staff being mediocre.
Like I'm sitting here having a conversation with a guy. Excuse my rudeness for texting.
Yeah, that's fine.
And he's like, "Oh, you don't have to have a Temple recommend to be a coordinator."
Well, apparently you do.
Apparently you do.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
It may not be on paper anywhere, but tell me again how you don't have to be a member of the church in good standing to be a coordinator or a head coach at BYU.
Isn't that how it works in business, though? A lot of the time, right? Like
perception's reality, though.
Perception's reality, one. But two, a lot of times rules and standards may not be on paper, so there may not be some piece of paper in a filing cabinet that says you need to be a card-carrying member to be a coordinator. But if that's the standard, if that's the culture, then that is the standard of the culture.
And unwritten rules always carry more sway than what's on paper.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
And by the way, and I'm just throwing this out there, don't know this to be true. What if Kalani what if Kalani said, hey, that's something for me. I need that, and whoever my coordinators are going to be.
But also, let's be honest. Jay Hill's a better hire as your defensive coordinator. Now, I was told earlier or later last week on Friday, if you go back and watch that show, it was like fluid during the show that Sean Nua had been offered the job. And this may not carry any weight to anybody, but I happened to talk to a high school football coach in Los Angeles last night who was saying, hey, Sean Nua is telling people he was offered the job at BYU.
Right.
So what does that tell you? Well, let's put the dots together. And what it tells me is, yeah, he was offered the job from Kalani Sitake, and we were also told that Kalani was fighting for Sean Nua. Mm-hmm. And that means that Jay Hill, who I think was coming the entire time, there's no doubt about it, now that Jay Hill was going to be the assistant head coach, like the number 2, and he was going to run special teams. And Sean Nua would have been the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I think this is a good hire, and I think if you can get Sean Nua to be a line coach, good night. Now it's unequivocally a win.
Yeah, you're in a good place.
Richard McDonald says BYU should hire Bobby Frescue for the offense from Sac State. Isn't he a quarterback coach at Sac State? I think. He's a great coach, and they whipped Weber's butt this year. Former Wyoming, do you mean WAC champion at QB? Awesome guy and friends with Tom Homo. I mean, we don't hire friends of Tom Homo.
Yeah.
The offense is not the problem at BYU. Why is this an obsession? And, hey, if you're a BYU fan, please enlighten me on this. Why is this an obsession? Because this offense was not bad this year. You know what your problem on offense is? Your strength and conditioning program's your problem on offense. Because you haven't been able to keep your best talent on the field and healthy. The fact that Cody Epps is out for the year killed this team. It wasn't Puka's injuries. It wasn't Gunner's injuries that essentially kept him off the field the entire year. It was Cody Epps.
Yeah.
The breakout superstar of this offense goes out for the year. I mean, how many guys do you want to throw the football to?
Well, and I also think, to be fair, in my opinion,
Chase
I think
Roberts,
there's Keanu Hill. Like there's a lot of guys who had injuries. There's no question about it. And I think the strength and conditioning staff needs to be fired and rehired. Like there needs to be a total revamp there. But in my opinion, the offense does need some work, but they definitely weren't a problem.
They need to be
able to run the football.
And they need to figure out. I want to know why Barrington transferred.
Yeah. Again,
I want to know why. Hello. BYU had to make big moves to seeing the writing on the wall with the other Fano decommitting, and seeing him go to Utah was a slap in the face. That's not why they hired Jay Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, they've known about Fano for several weeks.
Dude, I hope people understand this. This has nothing to do with those 2 kids going to Utah. This has been in the works for months.
Yeah.
Like you don't fire your DC, hire another one, be in the works with Nua at SC. Like you don't do all this stuff in the matter of a week. This has been working for a while.
Yes, absolutely it has. Jeremy Severe, good morning. Jay Hill sent players to the NFL from Weber, not just scrub talent. Contributing NFL talent did.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree. The Big 12 had 9.4 million viewers for the Big 12 championship game. Well, I think you also start looking at, you start looking at some other numbers. Look at these numbers right here. And let me get that comment off the screen. Hello. Go away, Mr. Comment. Hello. Go away, Mr. Banner. This is a problem right here. This is a problem. SEC, LSU, and Georgia, 10.894 million viewers. Big 10, Purdue and Michigan, 10.7 million viewers.
Right.
The Big 12, K-State and TCU, two low-level, small programs. Manhattan, Kansas.
Nationally speaking. Yeah.
In the Big 12.
Yeah.
Manhattan, Kansas. And granted, TCU, Dallas, Fort Worth put up 9.4 million views on television. The Pac-12 broke an all-time record and put up 5.9 million viewers. Bro, that's a problem. That's a problem.
And then Mark Harlan wants to come out, AD at Utah, wants to come out and say, we're not leaving the Pac-12. Yeah, my ass, you're not leaving the Pac-12.
Good luck, dude.
This is embarrassing. This is exactly what you don't want to see. I get it.
Good luck.
You broke a bunch of records, right? Hey, wow, great performance. Wow, record-setting attendance, 61,000 at Allegiant. Great, neat, right? The problem is, and what no one wants to say, including buddy Mark Harlan, is that SC's gone. UCLA is most likely gone. So who's it going to be this time? Is it going to be Utah, Colorado? Is Colorado and Prime going to draw that kind of viewership? Maybe.
Are you going to double your viewership?
Come on, dude. Come on.
That's tough.
And this is why I say, like, you can go back through the history of the show last month and see all the conversation we've had about George Kliavkoff and that conference leadership. This is the perfect example. We're going to celebrate breaking records, but ignore the fact that you're less than half of what the other conferences are doing. Come on.
That's rough, dude.
Come on, man.
Monty in the Morning, presented by The Advocates. Find them online at theadvocates.com.
If you've been injured in a car accident, even if it wasn't your fault, you still have to deal with the consequences, like overdue medical bills, car repairs, and worse, insurance companies that try their hardest not to pay their fair share. No need to worry, though. The Advocates are here to help.
Absolutely. The Advocates are here to help. Find them online at theadvocates.com. No matter where you are, they are ready to serve you. And by the way, you don't even have to call them. You can chat with an attorney online right now at theadvocates.com. I don't think there's any doubt that this Jay Hill news is the biggest story in Utah sports this morning. I mean, and if you're just tuning back in this morning, I think the foundational change that the hiring of Jay Hill signals, one, from a financial standpoint, you made an immense commitment to Jay Hill of $1 million a year, reportedly.
Yeah.
Jay Hill is scheduled to meet with the football team today. Do we hear about Kelly Papinga today?
Yeah. I think so.
If you have Jay Hill and Kelly Papinga, that's really good.
Facts.
If you have Jay Hill, Kelly Papinga, and Sean Nua, which, by the way, some people say Sean Nua is still coming as a D-line coach. We'll find out. That's three of the best recruiters in the Western United States.
Yeah.
I mean, that is unbelievable.
Well, you see what's happening with Prime in Colorado, right? All the talent he's getting on his staff. And the more and more I watch things like this go down, the more and more I feel like people just want to be part of a good team. They want to
win.
They want to win because that's why you play the game. You want to win. But I think, like with coaching, especially at the college level, you're evaluating opportunities. Like this Jay Hill situation, perfect example. Hey, I'm putting guys in the league from Weber, right? I'm doing all this winning. I think what did you say it was 69-33. Like
yes.
you're dominating. Your program is doing everything you want it to do, but you're going to leave that to get to the next level. And I commend him for that. And I think that consideration for all these guys is, hey, who else is there? Who else is on the team? Am I going to be a defensive coordinator and then have to patchwork together a staff? Or did you get Sean Nua, right? Did you get Pop? Did you get, these other guys that are going to come in and help supplement what we're trying to do? So that's why I think it really matters that, I don't know if they're going to get Nua or not. I don't know. But what I do know is if you do get Nua, that really bolsters what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Let's see. Ron Nolan says, why the heck should a Utah fan be shaking in their boots? Do I really have to explain that? It's Jay Hill. Jay Hill, who's a Utah Ute.
Yeah.
Played at Utah, coached at Utah, went to Weber, broke records, set history, and now he's defensive coordinator at BYU.
I'm going to say this again.
He was one of the top recruiters in college football when he was at Utah. I mean, I'm not saying to be shaking in your boots. BYU's a heck of a lot better today than they were yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about that. Provo Cougar fan says, has Utah and BYU picked up anyone from the portal yet? Not that I'm aware of.
No, and I think you won't hear portal news for a minute. I think it's going to be a minute. I think that once you get the coaching staff solidified, now I think it's time. And again, this isn't a Kalani thing, right? Obviously, this is outside the football program, but it's time for Tom Homo and the money-making machine at BYU to get right. Because ultimately, you can bring in the best recruiter there ever was, but if you don't have the resources to sign NIL deals and put things together, because remember the formula, right? It's NIL money plus the transfer portal equals college football playoff. That's the equation. NIL money, transfer portal, college football playoff. So if you hire these guys and they're great recruiters and you get kids the traditional way, that's great. That's phenomenal. That's everything you'd want it to be. But the reality of the world is to get to the college football playoff out of the Big 12, you're going to have to be prolific in the transfer portal. You're going to have to sign and do NIL deals. So that's what I'm saying. Great that the football program's getting buttoned up here, but now we got to see, and obviously the money making changes and hirings and all that won't be publicized. But do you see more NIL deals coming out? Do you see more Built Bar deal type deals getting done? And if you see that, that's a surefire sign that they are right in the program. And if you don't see it, obviously that says they're not.
By the way, did anybody see that Garrett Riley won the Broyles Award for the top assistant coach in the country? That's Lincoln Riley's brother at TCU.
Yeah, just saying.
I mean, the level of assistant, you get around the right people, you're going to win. Grocock's brother, Corey Grocock's brother.
Yeah.
Is this a BYU show? No, this is the biggest sports talk show in Utah. That's what this is. So when BYU's the lead story, we talk about BYU. Bottom line. Greg Romano says BYU struggles, Utah wins. That's why. That could be why. That could be why. Tom Bruckmiller says this is also a Big 12 show. Absolutely it is. Provo Cougar fan says people transfer to Utah for beer and females. Absolutely could be. Absolutely could be. Josh Levern says Utah has a bunch of wiggle room for students compared to BYU. They do.
Agreed.
Absolutely they do. Renee Roca says add TCU to a team no one in the Dallas-Fort Worth area cares about. It wasn't until they were 8-0 before suddenly my football timeline was full of TCU fans. They can't fill that 40K stadium. City is 1 million people. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. Greg Romano says Gunnar Romney and Jacob Conover have been friends from high school. We actually had Jacob Conover on our show in Phoenix.
Yeah.
When he went to BYU, he was really excited to be there. Mm-hmm. That one's the one that hurts. I'm sure Conover's BYU experience influenced Tate Romney's entrance into the transfer portal. I doubt that. I think there was mass dysfunction at BYU this past year.
Yeah.
At Utah, you don't have to soak, steep, or absorb. Wow. Really?
Hey, you start talking shit.
Really? Little Jizzy says, with BYU's Big 12 money, they can build a soaking facility. Watch the recruits come in flocks. Okay. Greg Romano says, Jay Hill didn't get a great deal. Aaron Judge will make more in 2 games than Hill will make in 1 year.
Yep.
It's baseball money versus college football money.
But I think it's funny to point that out, though.
Yep. Marsing Outdoors says, Hill's a stud and a great guy. Upgrade for BYU, win-win. Players play hard for him. They do. Exactly right. He also says, Tanner, you're a cup half empty then. Totally fine if that's your style, but sheesh, dude. Of course you can say that about anything, but enjoy the potential. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Tanner commented earlier that, he isn't sure that Jay Hill makes the defense better. Which is just shocking.
And I'm just saying,
what
I
are
disagree
you
with
talking
that.
about?
Like that's your opinion, and that's fine. But I'm saying that I disagree with that. I'm saying that Jay Hill at a small program is showing you what he can do, and I would love to see. And again, this is why I keep pointing out the money making thing, because You have to have money for a guy like Jay Hill to go and operate. You have to have that.
I agree. Quint Randall, what's up, my guy? He says, I mentioned the other day there has been a major shift recently, and it's bigger deal to have a temple recommend. I think you're right.
What do you
And
think
Quint,
that
I
shift
know-
is attributed to, though?
Well, I also think, and we've been talking about this, I feel like for months now, there is real divide inside of BYU. And I don't think that how do I say this gently? There's a lot of people at BYU that don't want the football team to succeed. They all want to make money, but they don't, and maybe the right way to say it is they don't care if the football team succeeds. So they don't mind saying, hey, if you want to be the water boy, you have to have a temple recommend. They don't mind the restrictions. They don't mind screwing relationships up that have been in place for a decade. They don't mind that because they don't care if the team wins. They care about themselves making money and having power and being the reason and control, which is, trust me when I tell you, if you remember anything that Uncle Monty says today, control is not real. Control is fake. Yeah, control is a joke. So Quint, I don't think you're wrong at all. Absolutely not. Ron says, what does a temple recommend do for you? It gets you into the temple. It means you're in good standing. It means that you have done what needs to be done. You are in good standing with the church. You are philosophically, emotionally, physically, morally aligned with the tenets and the teachings of the LDS church. And I don't know how many people realize this, but if you walk up to an LDS temple, you can't just go in. Like, it's a sacred place. And so to get in, you have to be in good standing and have a temple recommend. So it's not as simple as that. Boyd Lake says the coordinators don't have to be LDS. Well, you can go round and round about this. But they may not have to be, but they have to be. I mean, how else do you explain it? I don't know how else you explain it. Greg Romano says, Monty, you're not LDS. You fooled me. My wife is now wondering why I'm watching your show. Sorry. My bad.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. I mean, anybody who does a talk show in this state needs to understand the influence and the impact that the church has on decisions.
On the program, please.
On the program. I'm talking about Ryan Smith. I'm talking about Danny Ainge. I'm talking about BYU. And I'm sure there's LDS influence on some level.
Listen, if you don't understand that the LDS church is what gets business done in this town, you're lost.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. If we're telling the truth about the influence of the LDS church, it's a pipeline. It's an ATM machine. It is absolutely also a wrench in the gears.
Y'all feel me?
When it's good, it's as good as it gets. When it's bad, it's as bad as it gets.
But ultimately, it's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about religious beliefs or, like all the stereotypes or F the Mormons and the magic underwear. And I'm talking about getting business done.
Yeah.
Winning football games has nothing to do, in my opinion, with, your track record. You can have a great track record, but if you don't have if you're not a member in good standing, you're not going to get hired. Ultimately, at BYU, football is fifth. It's more important to be a member in good standing than it is to be an elite football coach.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Quint says they want people that buy fully into the mission of the university. Absolutely.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But it is something that stands in the way sometimes.
Yeah. M. Alvarez says, I don't think this is the issue because Jeff Grimes isn't a member. Right, but Grimey isn't here anymore. And I agree with Quint that things changed. Something changed. We've been talking about this for months. Months and months and months. And I tend to, and I'm not putting words in Quint Randall's mouth here, but I think it goes back beyond the beginning of the football season. This is something changed because we've heard about this divide between administration and athletics now for some time. 18 months is what my mind is saying. I just think that, yeah, we'll see. Richard McDonald gives us a $5 tip and says, grew up Mormon, no longer believe, still love BYU football. Religion is not BYU's problem. Mormons aren't the only people who want to live with standards. Well, I mean, geez, that's a whole different show. It's not, being LDS is not a problem. The church is not a problem. The church is the reality. The church is what it is. You're not making a phone call and changing that. I mean, it It just is what it is. Jeremy Bolton, good morning to you. Jeff Johnson says, as an employee of BYU, if you don't have a temple recommend, you need an ecclesiastical endorsement from another church institution in place of that recommend. Not a churchgoer at all doesn't work. Well, I mean, there is that for certain. Let's see. Richard McDonald says, last one, seeing Donnie destroy on the Cavs hurts my soul. Happy for the guy, but miss seeing him in the note. I think there's a lot of people. Donovan Mitchell is the leading contender for the MVP of the NBA right now. Did you see what he did to LeBron last night? God damn. Let's go. Stockton Cleverly says, are there any Weber players that are good enough to play P5 football that could potentially transfer in? I'm sure, but I don't think we know them.
Yeah.
Or at least in my opinion, we don't know them. I could be wrong. But that's just my opinion. I don't think we do. But hey, listen, I don't think there's any doubt that, when you look at Utah sports this morning, the biggest stories in sports as always, presented by Quick Quack Car Wash, I don't think there's any doubt that BYU is leading the news cycle this morning. And hey, when you're rolling around today, make sure you stop by Quick Quack Car Wash.
Play-Doh? I have no idea. Lipstick? Apparently my car door looked like a canvas. Quick Quack! It's my saving grace. No one else needs to know the madness of my journey. Just me.
You making $1 million a year, you better be paying your full
tithing,
tithes.
bro? You tithing?
Like, there's some questions like, hey, is Jay Hill a full tithe payer?
One of the questions to get.
I don't know.
So again, I'm not LDS. Basic research. I'm happy to be wrong. But my understanding of getting a recommend is you go through 2 interviews, right? And in these interviews, they ask you things like, do you strive to be honest in all that you do?
No, I like to lie.
Do you understand and obey the word of wisdom?
Hell no. Dude, I do what I want.
Here's one for you. Here's one. Are there serious sins in your life that need to be resolved with priesthood authorities as part of your repentance? Do you consider yourself worthy to enter the Lord's house and participate in temple ordinances? So these are just examples of questions that you get asked. And I'm telling you,
yeah,
like it or hate it is not the conversation.
It's not.
It is what it is. It is in place, and it has to be fulfilled if you want to be a coordinator at BYU. And with all due respect to Buddy on your phone or the comments, I don't care if it's on paper. Your actions tell me what it is. And right now, as you've said 4 times today, there's been a change, and you have to hold a card. You do. It just is what it is.
Yep. Big Mugamba says the question is whether he brings some Weber State coaches with him. I think there are 2 former BYU guys there. Wasn't Matty Ayu on that staff? I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that. I mean, you want your guys there. Greg says maybe Sean Nua is a smokescreen and Jason Kafusi is going to be BYU's D-line coach instead. Man, the Kafusis just keep coming to BYU, don't they? Gage Carter, not football related, but the best athletes to come out of Weber State is Damian Lillard. Not close. Not close. Jake Brandon, good morning to you. BYU now has Hill, and rumors are that Witt is close to being done. Now Hill is off the board for that new staff. Well,